Hi, my name is Barbro Ciakudia. I'm originally from DR Congo and Norway. I work with Invest Africa. And at Invest Africa, I run the investment missions that we do and then a few conferences on the ground.
Barbro, welcome to the African Tech Roundup.
Thank you so much for having me here.
London is the center of the world, at least as far as finance is concerned, at least in the minds of many, many people. You're here in the heart of Mayfair. I'd like to get a sense from you what the mood is from an investment perspective, individually, corporately, institutionally, what the mood is in terms of investing on the African continent.
So Invest Africa has been around for approximately 3 years. And since the start, we've seen that, especially here in London, there's been a great interest in entering Africa and getting a better understanding of what's happening on the ground. I think if we compare what we see from London investor and US investors, where we are also heavily involved, London investors do understand the continent more, have more experience in investing there, understand that it is a continent with several different countries, different cultures, and different opportunities in the different countries. In the US, they are now starting to turn towards Africa more. It's sort of more an educational understanding, giving them a better understanding of what's happening in Africa, rather than with the London perspective where they actually do know Africa better.
And give me a sense of the people, in your network. It's obviously a fairly elite network. Give me a sense of what their posture is when they approach you guys. Is it, we're looking for more information on this, or we've got a couple of million and we're looking to place it in a specific industry or sector? Or we have a country in mind that we'd like. At what sort of level do people approach you guys to help them act on their enthusiasm for the continent?
Firstly, Invest Africa was founded by a South African entrepreneur by the name of Rob Hersov, who is well known in Africa and has been invested in Africa for several years and is very well connected. So our network is made up of CEOs and high net worth individuals, private equity firms, family offices, and a few institutions and service providers. The questions that we get from the high net worth individuals and a CEO of a private equity company might be different. We do get some who are looking for specific deals, others who are, for example, interested in agriculture and would want to know where we would preferably invest and where we would direct them towards. Others want an introduction to, let's say, a president of a country, a minister, and would just want to understand the continent. So we do have different questions and different requirements from the different people who do approach us, depending on their experience in the continent from before.
What's your sense of the enthusiasm towards investing in African tech plays? And is it a sort of novelty play, or is it perceived perhaps as being too risky? What do you sense?
Looking at tech, we do see quite a lot of deals coming through on the continent within the tech space. Not everything is something that we would look at. I think that's definitely the sector where we do see most deals coming from. And there's so many opportunities on the ground with Uber expansion, with M-Pesa, with, for example, Facebook visiting Nigeria. So you do see quite a lot of investments on the continent within the tech space. There is great interest, and it is definitely the sector that can support like the financial sector, the infrastructure sectors and so forth. So the tech sector is definitely very important. It isn't one of our main focus within Invest Africa, but we do definitely see quite a lot of deals.
Tell me a little bit about your merchant banking activities and how this network, or at least the deals that are made via the network, are channeled through the merchant bank, and typically what investors might expect in terms of relating to the bank.
Invest Africa has a sister company called African Capital Investments. So the Invest Africa is more of a network and business development company, whilst the African Capital Investments is the merchant bank, where we do the fundraising, the advising, the due diligence, and so forth. Through the network, we do see quite a lot of deals, and that's where usually the deals that go through African Capital Investments come first. When our a specific member signs up for Invest Africa, they do usually sign up for a reason, which might be that they're looking for investors for their deal, or they're looking for a specific deal on the continent. The Merchant Bank works very closely with Invest Africa to identify deals on the ground and to identify investors for the projects that we do have. They've been through African Capital Investments. They've done investments in Ghana, for example, in South Africa, in DRC, just to name a few countries. It is a very niche and small merchant bank with a very strict focus, and a team that comes from Goldman Sachs and so forth. So it's a very good team and have very good experience in Africa.
And so give me a sense of some of the most common misconceptions you encounter. I mean, you host many events on a monthly basis here in London. I know you do many events on the continent as well, around some of the major conferences to do with infrastructural development, mining, and many other things. So you obviously rub shoulders with potential investors or first-time visitors to the continent and that kind of thing. What is the most common misconception you've encountered in terms of people's mindset towards the continent and how to go about investing there?
I can talk about a recent discussion that we had during when we were at the World Economic Forum. We hosted everything from Ashish Dakart from Mara Group to James Moria from Centum, who are two of the youngest CEOs on the continent. Now, one of the things that we did discuss is the idea that the perceived risk is so much higher than the actual risk on the continent. What we do see is that people do think that the continent is it's so risky. You have corruption, you have war, you have there's no order, there's no law, and so forth. And this is more what people do see. But when you're actually on the ground and you're actually speaking with the governments, you're actually looking at the projects, you're actually meeting the entrepreneurs on the ground. I think that's one of the biggest misconception, the perceived risk and the actual risk.
Give us a sense of the kind of individuals who you'd like to hear from, who'd add value to your network and who might benefit from getting in touch with you.
So in terms of the network, we're not sector focused. However, we do want to see serious investors, mainly people who are looking to invest in Africa or people who are already investing in Africa. It can be globally, because we do have a global network. We do have a reach in the US, and Switzerland, and the UAE, and of course here in London, and across Africa as well. So global investors who are looking either for access or do have access and are just looking for a network to connect with. Also anyone who is looking to use the merchant bank as well to do any fundraising or advising and due diligence and so forth.
And I do know it's by invitation, and of course there is a yearly subscription. So definitely some not barrier to entry so much as selection criteria, right?
There is a selection criteria, of course, because if you are in London, you would know that there are different networks that has a mission for Africa, similar to what we do. We are very unique in the way that we do target investors only, but now we're starting to open it more up so our investors can have access to the service providers and so forth, right? So we do have a criteria in terms of joining the network, but obviously we would work on per basis with other firms as well. If it's a business development contract or yes, if you need help opening doors in Africa and so forth. So it does depend on what requirements a person contacting us would need as well. But we're definitely happy to speak to anyone who's interested in Africa, learning more, and then also investing in a certain country in Africa.
And finally, is there a sector that you are personally most excited about in terms of investment flows, and one you might be rooting for? Perhaps it's not even a hot ticket thing right now, but for you, it's something you'd love to see blow up on the continent.
I think definitely the sector that I'm most passionate about is agriculture. Everybody needs to eat, right? So it is such a huge potential, and all of the arable land and on the continent as well. There's so much that we can do, and we do have several members who are doing great on the continent, but I do think there's so much so much other potential as well in terms of job creation and of course providing food for the continent where we see famine, and for example in Sudan and North Nigeria and so forth. That shouldn't take place, right? So I think agriculture is definitely a sector that is in the heart of mine. I also I'm also very interested in healthcare as well, just also because there's so much talent on the ground, but there's so much lack of sophisticated healthcare institutions on the ground as well, and just linking that to technology and so forth. So healthcare and agriculture are those two sectors that I'm most interested in.
Two great choices. Well, Barbro Ciakudia of Invest Africa, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.